We are live.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August 4th meeting of the East Hampton Town Board. Can you believe it's August 4th already? Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Councilwoman Burke Gonzalez,
Present.
Councilman Lees,
Present.
Councilwoman Overby,
Here.
Councilman Bragman,
Here.
Supervisor Van Scoyac.
Present. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This morning we have a public portion and the call-in number is on the screen. Any member of the public may call us and give us their comments or ask questions. We have one topic on today's work session agenda item, and it's the Verizon portable temporary cell site proposal. This is on Stephen Hand's Path near Route 27 on town property. So at this point, we'll go right to public portion comments. Mike, do we have any callers on the line?
No, currently there are no callers on the line, but I'll inform you if we get any.
Okay, I'm going to go into just a brief update then on, first of all, top story this morning is the tropical storm Isaias, which is making its way into our region. We expect impacts today to begin around noon. This is a tropical storm with heavy rainfall possible, strong winds, sustained winds of around 40 miles or more with gusts over 55 miles an hour. It could cause minor to moderate coastal flooding, along with high surf and dangerous rip currents. Please be very careful. Do not go in the water today with that heavy surf and rip currents. It's probably going to be way too dangerous to do that. Also, if you have your umbrellas up around your pool or any lightweight things, you might want to take care of them before these high winds come through the area today. We're not expecting any power outages, but that's always a possibility. So we'll keep you apprised of any updates as that goes forward. On the COVID-19 front, the latest results that I have from the county are new positives, 45 new positives as of 8/1, so the 1st of August. There are only 31 people hospitalized throughout the county at this time, 13 of which are in ICU and 6 intubated. There were 5 new admissions on August 1st and 4 discharges. I spoke yesterday with Robert Ross from Southampton Hospital, and for the last 5 days, they've had no COVID cases in the hospital. The Peconic Bay Hospital has had several days without any cases. They had 1 case as of yesterday. Stony Brook Hospital, which has over 600 beds, has only 14 cases. So, you know, we continue to have a low rate of infection, relatively low rate here. We need to continue to wear masks, follow the guidance on social distancing, and prevent the recurrence of this disease. We've seen other areas of the country where this advice wasn't adhered to and they've had resurgences. I think the list of states that are now considered hot spots has risen to 34. And if you're coming from one of those states to New York, you are required to quarantine for 14 days from the time you were last in one of those states. Michael, do we have any callers on the line now?
We actually just got one. Yes, 2
Okay,
actually.
we'll take callers now.
Okay, I'll be unmuting the first caller right now. Hello, caller. You're live with the town board. Hello, caller. Are you there? You're live with the town board of East Hampton.
Hi, I have no questions. I'm just listening in. Thank you.
Okay. There is another caller, Mr. Supervisor. I'll move on.
Thanks, Mike.
Hello.
Morning.
Hello. Good morning, Peter. It's Tom McMorrow. How are you?
Hey, Tom. How are you doing? I'm well. Thanks.
Fine. I'm calling up, unfortunately, with some rather dire news, and I don't know how much the board knows about it, but I feel it's something that, as a governmental agency, you need to know about. Last night at 9:18 p.m., Steve Dillingham, the head of the census, the director of the census, issued a directive. Now, part of it has been publicized already in the media. I don't know if you've seen it, but they're cutting the census off 31 days earlier in terms of the non-response follow-up operation. That's the good news. The bad news is that if you read carefully through the directive, you'll see that what it says is that Donald Trump's memo, which he issued on July 21st, is going to be enforced by the census. What this means is the Census Bureau is planning on removing the undocumented residents from the final count for apportionment. This is going to result in New York State losing 1 seat in the House of Representatives, California 2 to 3 seats, and the Census Bureau has embraced this, unfortunately. And I just think it's something that we need to be aware of, and we need to take action on. As a community, we have an undocumented population, and they're going to be discounted. And that is in the directive that was issued by Dillingham last night. And I would suggest I'll forward it to you all, but I would suggest looking into it as soon as possible.
Hi, Tom.
I
saw the other day in the Times I thought the shortening of the time period for personal contact was bad enough, but this is news to me about undocumented workers. I would assume there's going to be some leave left for that.
Yes.
This is very troubling news.
Yes, it is. And as far as the shortening goes, just to let you know, I've spoken to people in the census. What they're going to do now, before the shortening, the rule was that you would go and try to visit a house 3 times. 3 different times, maybe the evening, in the morning, on the weekend, and then you would go to the proxy route, which is try to find someone who can give you the information about who lives there and how many people. They've eliminated 2 of those visits. So a census worker is going to go to a house once, 1 time, and then try to find someone to tell them who lives there. I mean, it's a fiasco. And I've written an article on it. I interviewed Kenneth Pruitt, who was the head of the census in 2000, and she said that he expects the damage to the census by this shortening to be, he actually said in the New York Times recently, I think he said like 10%. He thinks there are going to be overcounts and undercounts. And essentially it favors the wealthy and it discriminates against the poor. So it's a very concerning action, and it's there for the world to see now, because Dillingham issued this directive last night, and of course issued it at 9:18 p.m. So it tells you what's in the directive. So that's my piece. I just want you all to be aware of this and start thinking about what we as a community and a town can do to correct this. There have been lawsuits launched after Trump made the July 21st memorandum. After he released that, Common Cause filed suit. But I think now it's been ratcheted up to a very high level because this is happening. It's happening now. So we need to do something.
I really appreciate you calling in. I know you've been following the census throughout, and I think it's important for people to understand why this is so important. The census is supposed to document everyone who's in the country as of April 1st, regardless of what their status is. And the reason that's important is in New York State, we educate children regardless of their status. There's so many different ways the census numbers are used. And I think the other really most troubling is the fact that representation within our Congress changes based on those census numbers. And As you
Yes.
said, New York stands to lose a seat, maybe more. California, maybe 4. This is extremely troubling. It's another effort, I believe, to erode our democracy. That is not the way the census was intended to be taken. And I think it's really important that we stand strong and support our institutions and our Constitution. So I appreciate
I
it.
agree.
Tom, didn't they already fought a battle over adding a question on immigration status,
Right.
correct? And then they
Right. Now,
banned
so
it.
if you go back, Jeff, to that the day that Trump announced that they were going to drop the question, they were not going to pursue it anymore. He also issued a directive that they were going to get a true census, he called it. And the true census was going to be determined by administrative records. And using administrative records, they would remove what he called the illegal aliens. So he said that then, and nobody really paid attention because the question was gone. But now they found the workaround, which is on July 21st, he issued this memo, and so now the Census Bureau is saying, yes, we're doing it.
That was my point, that this was an end run around, a result they didn't like when they went to court on it.
Absolutely.
And while we're talking about the census, we still have very low numbers reporting for the census and being counted here. It's really a quite simple process. You can go online and do it online. It takes less than 10 minutes to do it, but it's so critically important because, state aid, federal aid, local county aid, it's all based on census numbers. Based on the census and the update to it. For instance, it shows that East Hampton, surprisingly to many, ranks #1 for poverty per capita within the county of Suffolk. We have the most extreme wealth, and we also have quite a bit of poverty. So, that's important to know, to understand the makeup of your community and to be able to address those kind of issues. Those census numbers are used for so many different things. So an accurate count reflecting who's actually here in the country is so important.
And Peter, when you mentioned April 1st, I think it's important for anyone listening to this to understand that what the census is counting, because a lot of people, this is going to be tricky, because a lot of people fled the city in late March and moved to their second homes. But the census wants to know where you were supposed to be. That's where they want to count you. They want to count you if you're supposed to have been in New York. You should be counted in New York, as long as you had a house there, if you had a residence. Now, if you truly moved in March to, let's say, Montauk from Manhattan, then you should be counted in Montauk. But that April 1st date is the key issue. But this is all well and good, but unfortunately, at this point now, it's like the cat is out of the bag, and we understand exactly what the administration is up to.
Well, thank you for calling in, Tom, and for continuing to cover that story.
Thank you, sir.
You be well. Do we have any other callers on the line, Michael?
No, there are currently no more callers on the line.
Okay. I'd like to move forward with our work session agenda topic, and if we get callers later on, I'll try to take them in between in the breaks.
Okay.
So today we have a Verizon portable temporary cell site proposal, and that location is at the Highway Department property on Stephen Hand's Path near Route 27 in the Wainscott School District. We have Jameson McWilliams, one of our town attorneys, and I see Denise Vista from Verizon representing them as their attorney on the call today. And I believe we also have Rob Olaleon, if I'm saying that correctly, with Verizon. So I'll let you take it away. Jameson, you want to give us a brief introduction and we'll get right to the request.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Hi, Denise. I've never seen your face. We've spoken a lot. Is Rob going to be participating today?
Yes, he should be calling in or zooming in shortly. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So all I was going to introduce is we have Denise Vista. She's from the Amato Law Group and she represents Verizon. And then I've been in conversations with Denise and also Rob Monteleone, who is, I believe, the Verizon Wireless. He's a direct contractor for Verizon Wireless, and they have approached the town to present the possibility of having a temporary cell tower at 106 Stephen Hans Path, which is, as Peter described, is kind of on the corner of 27 and Stephen Hans Path on the west side of the street. And they also currently have an application in front of the planning board for a permanent tower at the same location, on the same site, slightly different, location within the site. And so they're here this morning to present the proposal to the town board and to the public. That's pretty much it.
So Denise, can you give us a background? You have an application before the planning board, as Jameson said.
That is
for
correct.
a permanent tower, and this is a request for a temporary tower to be placed there while the permanent tower goes through review. Of course, if you were denied, the temporary tower would be removed. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that last part? If you were denied the
application for the permanent tower, I mean, we're not talking about vesting any rights by giving you a temporary tower here.
No, correct. I mean, yeah, so we filed the application in or about April, I forget the exact date, but obviously, things had changed for a few months before that. And as of March, we know that the traffic in East Hampton, the traffic meaning the wireless traffic, has increased dramatically and earlier than it normally does in the summer months. So we had reached out to the town to propose the temporary tower pending the review and approval of the permanent pole. So right now where we are with the permanent pole, the planning board had a few comments looking into alternative sites, et cetera, and we're working on addressing them. And we hope to resubmit within the next couple of weeks. So in the meantime, one of the things holding us up on the temporary pole was the wetlands flagging. So we have since completed that. It's delineated on the survey. The temporary pole will not be within any of the wetlands or the buffers required by the town or the state. So we're proposing a 100-foot pole with a small equipment area. But it's not like the ones you've seen in the past. I'm not sure if Jameson had provided the photos that we have. It basically looks like a monopole with the exposed antennas, essentially. So we're proposing a 100-foot temporary pole. The permanent pole is, we had originally proposed a 120-foot pole, but have since reduced it to 110 feet based upon the comments that we received from the planning department. Again, we haven't resubmitted, but just in order to have co-locators. So we don't want to reduce it too much. Number one, because of the tree height in the area is about 65 feet. So not only do we need to be above the tree line, but we also need to have the co-locators above the tree line as well. So the intent is to have the temporary pole up until, and hopefully the permanent pole is approved, at which time then it would obviously be removed.
Can I ask can you describe that small equipment area a little bit better? I didn't get any.
Yeah. Jameson, did you by chance provide them with the lease exhibits?
I did.
Okay.
Previously, what I'm trying to pull up now, if everyone can bear with me, I can maybe share my screen and pull those visuals up. Would that be helpful?
Sure. And while you do, so basically the pole would be enclosed within a fenced compound, 14 1,444 square feet. So it's not really, I shouldn't say it's an equipment area like we typically have with our cell sites. It's really just the pole and some equipment on the pole itself. We'd be connecting to the existing electric on the property. So that's pretty much it. It's the pole within the equipment compound, which would be surrounded by an 8-foot high chain link fence. And my understanding is that it would be situated approximately about 300 feet northeast of where the permanent pole is currently proposed. So there wouldn't be any clearing or anything required for the temporary pole. And again, you know, it's based upon the fact that we've seen a large uptick in the traffic in East Hampton. And not only is this area, there's substantial dead zones in this area, and then you have the added influx of, you know, folks who are going to their second homes and working from home. And then you have the children who are remote learning. So there's an increase in traffic based upon that. And it's our understanding that a lot of folks probably won't be going back in September because obviously with the unknown and city schools and just the schools around the state. So we're just looking to address those imminent concerns. And then obviously the permanent pole would address those permanently in the future.
Denise, can you quantify the uptick that you talk about?
No, I tried to get that data before we got online, but I do know that there is. I could get that for you. I don't have that now, but we just know. I mean, and as you're all familiar, that there is, you know, a substantial increase in the summer traffic, but it started a lot earlier, you know, back in around March is our understanding. So no, I could provide that, but I don't have it on me.
Okay, that'd be helpful to have.
I think we all know anecdotally that there's been a deal of pressure on all the infrastructure communications, whether it's the internet, cable, or cellular services due to all the remote learning, all the remote office work. Our systems are really under a lot of stress, right?
The Netflix binging.
Well, there might be some of that too.
Denise, it's David Leese here. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
The service area for this pole at 110 feet, that would help out. It's a very historic dead spot. We know that as far as cell phone communications. That would reach then into the village, into Georgica, and then would it reach closer to the Stephen Hans Path 114 traffic, area, traffic light area? What is the operation platform?
I'm sorry. Sure. So the goal for the permanent tower, the permanent facility, is to provide coverage along Sunrise Highway and to provide connectivity to, we just recently received approval from the planning board for a tower at the Wayne Scott Airport. If you know, there is currently a lattice tower there. We're building a new one, and the old one will be removed when all the carriers relocate. So basically it'll provide connectivity to that site. But the goal for that, the permanent tower, is to provide the coverage in the areas of the site and then to the south and then along Montauk Highway. So that would be similar to what the temporary pole would be providing as well.
Okay, then the process moving forward here, if it's temporary, is it a temporary building permit that you're looking for? What's the process put through the town as far as regulatory aspect for that temporary CAL?
Sure, and I think we're seeking guidance from the town as well. I know we've spoken with Jameson, and I think the initial thought was to go through planning at least on the permanent tower, so there could be some level of review. We've gone through that first level. Like I said, we plan on resubmitting next week in response to the planning board's concerns and questions. So I think that's also why we're here today, is to understand what the process would be. Would it be a building permit? Would there be, would a lease be required? Would it be a resolution by the town board? I know that there are, various ways that this has been handled in many municipalities. So, and it's municipality by municipality in how it's handled. We typically don't enter into a lease. It's usually some sort of building permit, or a resolution by the municipality's board. But obviously, we're open to what
John, there is some precedent for this. I believe that we've had temporary towers in place on a couple of occasions in the past where a permanent tower had been granted just to provide coverage in the interim period. Would we enter into a license agreement in this situation?
That's what I was just going to say. We have done license agreements in the past with the carriers because it's a temporary period. It's the town's property. As a lease, permanent lease requires a permissive referendum period, so it can't be effective for at least 30 days after it's adopted. And these are short term. So we've used license agreements in the past to give an authorization for a cellular on wheels setup.
Can I ask you?
To the emergency as a, could we refer to the emergency that we have with COVID as a motivating factor?
I think you could certainly make
Like
the case that in these times with severe demand and the importance of solid cellular communications throughout the town, that it's important to do this. And I think I'll be offering a resolution on Thursday to hire a consultant firm to help us take a more comprehensive approach to our communications throughout the town so that it isn't just piecemeal, one provider here, one provider there. We really need, I think at this point, to have a comprehensive look at our communications across the entire town. And as you know, we also need to update our cellular code. But this could be a first step towards improving coverage in the short term.
Can I just go back to the area that you're improving coverage on? Because that went by me pretty quickly. So you think it's going to improve coverage on 114 in that direction? Is that one?
No, so basically along Montauk Highway, so to the south, and then basically to the west as well. So we have the site on the the airport, which is to the west, that it's currently under construction. So the goal is to provide connectivity to that site and along Sunrise Highway, because there are so many dead zones when you're driving in that area.
So that viewers understand, the Wainscott site that Denise is speaking to is on the power lines. It's not the other one up by the police department.
Right.
Yes, correct. Supervisor, may I ask you had mentioned about a consultant. Have you, do you have a consultant in mind, or it's just a resolution to? Yeah,
we're going to have a request for proposals to seek consulting firm.
Okay.
Specializing in cellular communications to help advise us.
Okay.
And so back to John's comment about the license agreement, if this does move forward, then too, I think part of it would be almost performance bond action for any repair of the area after the tower was potentially removed from the area, after the agreement would be completed. And then also, if it was not removed, that we would have funding to actually forcibly remove it as part of that license agreement. That's some language I would want in there also.
Sure, I don't think that would be a problem.
Can I ask you, are there going to be other wireless, providers on the temporary pole besides Verizon?
No, not at this time. I'm not sure. Has Rob Monteleone joined?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you know, has there been any interest? I know we have some interest on the permanent pole, but do you know of any for the temporary? Is just solely for Verizon, correct?
I haven't heard of structurally. I'd have to look and see if they can fit. But I would think they probably would be able to. I don't know if they want to go on a temporary tower. I know they're all very interested in the permanent tower. I think they're just taking more of a wait and see approach, see if we get approved and we go into construction, and then all of a sudden they'll know it's more of a reality, and then they would probably more than likely come on.
So Rob, you have capacity on the permanent tower for additional carriers?
Yes.
And you intend to try to partner with them at this location?
Oh yeah. If we definitely will have the tower is going to be built for probably 4 carriers. The height is what's really going to drive it. I don't know if anybody's going to really be able to go that low on it, because if we're at 110 now, you got everybody going in a 10-foot section. I don't know how low they're going to be able to go where it's going to be worth their while.
Right.
So
well, if you have trees at 65 feet and the lowest one's at 80 or so, yeah, that might be a little.
Right. So I think that's what's going to drive it more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So is it possible you'd have another carrier on the temporary pole? I mean, do you think it's physically possible?
It might be. I mean, I'd have to talk to my engineers about it, but I think it's not unusual for additional carriers to go on a temporary tower. So I would think it's certainly a possibility. Yeah.
So we could probably put something to that effect in the license agreement, because it obviously would be helpful to improve service temporarily.
Right. Now you bring up the point about the permanent tower. I mean, we could live at 110, but that's why we originally tried to do 120, because that way you'd be able to get more carriers on it. And if the town's owning the pole, that's more income for the town as well. So, it's something to think about as well, as far as the height of the tower, the permanent one.
So do you have FAA regs that you have to meet? I mean, in terms of, do you need lighting on this tower? Due to the proximity?
No. We already went through FAA once.
What would be the limit, Rob, of the height you could have a tower in this location without lighting it?
We'd have to run it for additional height. For 120, I don't believe we did need it.
Okay.
It passed.
No, we didn't require marking or lighting. And
Right.
actually at the tower on the Wainscott at the airport, we didn't require lighting or marking, surprisingly, either. And that was a 130-foot tower, but we were not permitted to exceed 130, correct, Rob, at that
Correct.
location?
It was 130. We couldn't do any higher than 130. However, the town did require us, even though the FAA did not, the town did require us to put lighting and to paint it as well as part of the approval.
I think this is where you're looking to put this pole, is the approach to our main runway, 1028. Now, what was different about the presentation that was made 2 years ago? You folks were out here at a work session in, I guess it was July of 2018. Is this the same ask, or refresh our memory?
Well, that ask was more about the permanent tower, sort of just kind of laying the groundwork for a permanent tower. This is new. This is for the temp tower. This is the new.
I think that was just to present that location. So, to see what the town, basically to see how the town would feel about a pole at that location.
Can you talk about the engineering of the temporary pole and what it would be engineered, particularly winds, since we're coming up to a...
That's timely, Sylvia.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Do you have that information?
Rob, do you want to address that?
What we're going to do with this tower is, typically if we do a normal cow, those require guide wires to go out. And it's usually, 2 times the height of the tower. What they've engineered now is a tower where the foundation is sort of built in above, and you don't need the guide wires anymore. So it's just a regular pole without the extra guide wires taking up additional space. So that's what we would do here. And I think the drawings, Denise, you already sent Jameson the drawings for that, right?
Yes. Jameson, were you able to find them so you could share them, or?
Have it pulled up. I can try and share my screen.
I think I have the survey up, at least one of them.
I was going to say, I'm trying to avoid sharing everything else in my email, so I'm trying to download them.
So if we could go back to the engineering question about the winds and what they would, sustainable winds. I know, that has changed recently, as it does over the years. You need to be able to withstand 120 mile an hour winds for 20 seconds. I don't know what the bottom line is now. Can you tell us what a temporary pole would do in winds and for how long?
I would have to get information on that. I do not have that information handy. I'd have to ask, but if it's manufactured to get built, it's gonna be engineered for the local wind loads.
Yeah, I have your email, Jameson. I'm looking at the pictures.
Yeah, the picture.
It's got sort of an iron or a steel base, Rob. Is that okay? Like a square base that provides stability, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they've kind of changed over the years. If you maybe remember during Sandy, there was a lot of, we called them cell on wheels. They were on a truck and that, involved the guy wires, which don't anymore. And it's now ballast mounted. So if you can see in those photos, it's basically like steel.
Right.
How's that? Did that work?
No. We don't see the
I
pictures.
have it
We
here. I
just
can
see-
bring it up, Jameson.
You just see the rest of my email?
Yeah, we see your emails. I can,
Should have seen me during an ARB meeting. I tried to share the screen. I don't know what's wrong with me. Can't do it.
Denise, this is going to be a little bit different than ones you might see at football games or at sporting events where they literally are actually a mobile unit that gets extended up like a telescoping. This one's going to have a firm base on it with ballast points and tie-down straps. So it's a little bit different than what you might see there, more industrial, but still provide that same type of service for the overload or get the capacity of the bandwidth that is needed. Is that correct?
Well, actually, we do use these at sports arenas, during seasons, but this will not be tied down. There will be no guy wires. So this is basically just ballast mounted with the steel. I think that we had sent over some photos of stadiums and other locations. And I don't know that I'm going to be able to bring those up on
are
my.
you able to see my my screen sharing?
Yeah. So that's the lease exhibit, correct?
Right.
So you're seeing the
So
elevation.
Yes.
And
the north elevation shows the profile of what it would look like, and the other is a plan view, which shows the base and the top of the tower looking down.
Correct. And I know we had sent over some photos, but it sounds like,
Yeah, I can bring those up too.
okay.
If you just
So those were in the July 21st email.
Right.
yeah, I have that email up. I'm just got to go back to the attachment.
Thank you, Peter,
Sure.
for helping me.
What does cow mean?
Oh, cell on
Still
wheels.
on wheels,
Oh, okay.
which is this is a misnomer.
That's
Should
what they
be
used to.
TWB, cell with ballast. Is that the share now? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a tower. This is a representation next to a,
And that's
Water
typically when
tower.
it's next to a water tank, that's because they're repairing or refacing it. So we have to remove the antennas and relocate onto a temporary pole. Yeah, so you can see the base here.
Right.
Rob, this is typical of what they're using now, correct?
Yeah, there's different types of bases, but yeah, this is,
so this looks like a steel frame base, and then it has ballast stacked on top of it.
yeah.
Do we have any other questions at this point?
So what's the timing? If we gave you the go-ahead this month, when would things start to work, and when would we be, in operation?
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, it would depend on, about make sure we can get the power there and that type of thing, get the power telco all lined up, have the pole delivered. I mean, it probably takes about 3 weeks to get everything done, maybe a month, depending on, any little issues that pop up, but.
Well, you had said the power is there, I thought, Denise, right? You're just,
There is power, but it still has to be connected. And I believe there has to be walks with PSEG, correct, Rob?
Yeah, you'd have to do something with PSE&G and get that coordinated. And
Yeah.
fortunately, it's there, but you just got to get them to do what they have to do.
Any other questions for Rob or Denise at this point?
No, for myself personally, I know this is a very historical dead zone. You have sports fields over there that a lot of children would be playing on. Then too, if they get injured, it's very difficult. That's some of the comments that we've heard in the past about little league fields and such, soccer fields. Something I definitely would continue looking into. The bandwidth out here right now, it's compromised. I can't talk to anyone. I don't even call anyone when I pass the Red Horse Market almost, because I just know I'm not going to get to them through that point. And particularly with the traffic that's building up there right now, what is that doing to public safety? And then also, what is that doing to commerce? So those are questions or justification I have for continuing this conversation.
Okay. Well, at this point, I think the board needs to confer and give it a little more consideration, and we certainly can forward you any further questions that we have. Denise and Rob, we appreciate you being on the call today and helping us with trying to improve cell service throughout the town.
Great. Thank you. We appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Be well.
You too. Bye.
Michael, do we have any callers on the line at this point?
No, there are no callers currently on the line.
Okay. Well, in that case, I'd like to move on with liaison reports.
Sure.
Kathy, you have a liaison report for us?
I do. As always, I'd just like to start with the Human Services Department. They're available for any seniors or any community members that are in need of assistance. The department is open and operates Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. And those that need to reach out should call 631-329-6939. We're continuing to deliver 5 frozen meals a week to our seniors. Right now, we have 275 clients, which totals almost 1,400 meals. Through last Friday, we have delivered 24,975 frozen meals, and we have just over 1,100 meals, almost a week's worth in the freezer. We continue to make weekly wellness calls to several hundred seniors each week just to determine if how folks are doing and if they're in need of assistance. With the tropical storm coming, we're reaching out to those seniors that are on our emergency contact list, plus anyone who's requested food or a phone call. Our goal today is to call 385 seniors to make sure that they're all set to ride out the tropical storm. And for those that need delivery of groceries, prescriptions, or other essentials, they should reach out and coordinate with Human Services, and they can accommodate those that as well. On Thursday, I'm going to have a resolution. What we'd like to do is purchase for the Human Services an outdoor standalone freezer. When Diane was actually at Town Hall, Diane Patrizio, our Human Services Director, at Town Hall for a meeting, I guess we held back in, I'm losing track of time. I think it was in July when we met with department heads on, how we get everybody back to work. Tony Littman gave her a tour of the food pantries, East Hampton food pantries, walk-in freezers, and I guess it was love at first sight. And because right now we have 5 freezers that we use. 2 units are commercial units. The other 3 are not. One of the freezers is in the trailer. Freezers are in the lower level of Human Services. So it's challenging for our nutrition folks and those that are making meals for seniors to remember which meals are stored where, and it would be really a godsend if they had a walk-in freezer out the kitchen door. And there is space there. We could put down a cement pad. We think it'll be about $25,000 for the freezer with all the shelving. So I'm going to offer a resolution on Thursday to go out to bid for a walk-in, standalone freezer. The spring CAC did not meet last month. We didn't have enough folks for the call. But the emergency communications subcommittee did meet, and we're actually meeting every 2 weeks. And we've talked about the RFP that's going out. We have a resolution on, Peter mentioned it, for a radio frequency engineer. That's going to be on Thursday. And if you recall, we had a presentation back in April that talked about the proposed changes to our personal wireless service facilities, that the code needs to be updated, and that we needed to bring on a radio frequency engineer. So what we're going to be asking of folks that will respond to the RFP is that they're going to be asked to review applications submitted to the planning board for site plan approval and or ZBA or for variances. They're going to provide guidance to the town board as to propose leases or licenses for the town-owned properties for the installation of telecommunications equipment, particularly with respect to first responder emergency services operations, service deficiency areas, optimal facility, site location, and site construction, modification and management. They'll prepare reports for each reviewed application and make recommendations to the involved agencies and the town board with regard to applications, perform site visits related to these applications, and attend internal meetings as well as meetings of our appointed boards. So I think this, we need to move this forward. I'm very excited that it's on for this Thursday, and ideally we'll be able to hire someone in mid-September, which would be ideal because, as Denise addressed, we know that the demands for telecommunications has increased during COVID. And I think when I go around town, the one thing I do hear from most people is the frustration they have with telecommunications. Next up is special events. I mentioned this, I believe, last month too. We continue to get inquiries from community members about hosting special events. Just want to reiterate that we're still not permitted to have catered events on our beaches. The governor had sent out an executive order back in May, and then he actually, there was interim guidance that went at the end of June. So we're not issuing special event permits for gatherings on the beach. We did have 2 applications for drive-in movies. They were reviewed by the special event committee. One was for the Montauk Chamber of Commerce. David and I spoke about this last month, wanted to do an event, a weekly event at Rod's Valley. They were requesting an event for 500 people. And then we also had an application from East Hampton Volunteer Ocean Rescue. They wanted to use Atlantic Beach for 350 people. And when the special event committee convened and reviewed the applications, we felt that given the demands put on the town's public safety staff during this time of year, we cannot provide the necessary enforcement personnel for an event with these numbers. And the special event committee was unable to issue a special event permit for these events, but we're willing to consider reviewing them later this month for September, October. So that's where we left it with both Ocean Rescue and the Chamber, and both organizations were understanding, realizing, it is August, our public safety is stretched, and we need to take a hard look at how many, even though folks are to stay in their car, we've seen, in other places that didn't take place. So we're being cautious, and we need to be. So that's what I've got for today.
Thank you, Kathy. David?
Wait, Kathy, I wanted to ask Kathy a question.
Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
The number of cars seems excessive in both of those. Is there anything that would lead us to believe that many cars would come there? And would it be better if they did something at, there was less amount of cars that were going to be there?
So so what they did for the Montauk Chamber, they assumed 125 cars with 4 people on average per car. And that's where they got to the 500 number. You never know. It also, how frequently you have the event could diminish the numbers week to week. They had originally put in an application for 9 Wednesdays, from the middle of August through the middle of October. And also the movies, the draw as well, right? So some movies, bring more people out than others. Ocean Rescue was asking for 80 cars plus 15 staff cars, and they wanted to use the back lot, the Comfort Station lot of Atlantic Beach. So they are already interested in picking a date in September. They've reached out to me, and I think we'll have a better idea where things are a month from now, as far as where the crowds are here, and the number of folks that stayed behind in their second homes, or the renters, and get a good handle on that. And also, I think if you do it, there was some talk in the committee, we do it in the cooler months, people may be less apt to get out of their cars, because that's a concern, is that folks are going to get out of their car, kids are going to, start to run around a little bit, and we don't want to see that at this point.
I think it's also a matter of resources,
Right.
particularly with enforcement and PD right now. The police department, we're full on summer. They have a tremendous number of calls every weekend and all through the week, and it seems like those call levels are even higher than in a normal summer in some cases. So, we don't want to take up additional bandwidth during the height of the season. Of our enforcement staff. They have plenty on their plate right now.
Right, and the Ocean Rescue event they're looking for a Friday night with a Saturday rain date. So that makes it a weekend, makes it even more challenging for public safety. So, as I said, everybody was very understanding and wants to work with us.
Right. I just wanted to jump in on that and say that I was involved in the discussions, and was pleased with the outcome. I think, especially in light of recent events and that failure in the concert in Bridgehampton, that despite our good numbers, and they are good, it's a little excess caution on these big events is still warranted.
Mm-hmm.
We're still seeing. I'm sure some of the board members saw the pictures of the crowded beach in Montauk, which was kind of shocking, actually, on social media. But I just think the scale of those events was wrong, and I believe both of them were going to set up food or concessions of some kind, which is another draw to get that will bring people out of cars and have a tendency to have them mingle. And I just thought the scale of both of those events was excessive, and I say that reluctantly because they're both good organizations, and I know they want to raise funds, and I support them both certainly. But I think I was glad that the committee reached that consensus fairly readily to just kind of be a little bit more conservative right now while things are unsettled in the country on COVID.
Yeah, if I could say though, as far as food was concerned, what they were looking to do is have people, book in advance, and then it would be delivered to their car. It wasn't that folks were going to, go up and get a hot dog, and you had, people, everybody going up to the food concessions. It was going to be like a car hop. It was going to be delivered to your spot.
You know what? I remember the old days of outdoor movies, and one of the fun parts of it is bringing your own food. Maybe when we were younger, we brought other things too, but I think that's part of the fun, just bringing your own food. I just think anything that we can do to reduce people mingling or contact between cars would be probably safer at this point.
So I'll just jump in on this one. I'm still a supporter of the drive-in movie theaters. I think that within the guidance of the state that they could be put on correctly. As a member of a family that actually has been participating in the Hampton Film Festival, drive-in movie theaters, Kathy is correct. You might say it's 100 cars, but 30 show up, or the next day it would be 80 for the Parent Trap compared to ET. That's a different draw. If it's done correctly, I think there's a way that we can give the residents a little bit of a release and a little bit of a break, and also a little bit of a fundraiser. For a lot of not-for-profits are going to have very challenging times moving forward. I understand the committee's concerns and the bandwidth. I look forward to see if they could possibly come back. But as my family's been using this type of very safe events. They've gone off without hitch, these ones. To have the chain smokers at 8:30 done by a tequila company, I mean, I've said this very easily, anything after 8:30 with tequila, nothing goes well. So that was just bad. But I think that the bandwidth of our enforcement agencies, I can understand that. I just hope there's a way that we can come back and maybe re-explore this in the upcoming weeks, because it is something that my family comes back every night and they enjoy.
Yeah, I agree with David and hope that we can find a way, and agree with the bandwidth. I know how stretched thin everybody is. And that's also, temperament and anxiety that, plays into it during this COVID period. So, but this is a relief. And I think it does depend on the movie that's being shown, so that it, family movies are just that, family movies, and good for the community. So I hope we can find a way to get this accomplished, at least in September.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Okay. So, Kathy, you're done with your liaison report? And David, you have a liaison report?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. Again, the Beach Advisory Group convened this morning. We talked about the beaches and action on the beaches in the first August weekend. And after a heat wave that we've been going through, it's been very, very hot. It's been difficult for our employees, but they've been moving forward. All levels of enforcement between enforcement agencies and the lifeguards have had great coordination. We've used our technology as far as drone videos and then our communications to really assist with this. Levels of enforcement, I think we'll talk about a little later. I just want to give everyone a couple indicators of what we're seeing out there. Nighttime activities on the beaches have increased tremendously. I know we've discussed this in the past, primarily since the restaurants aren't necessarily maybe as fully packed or open, or people want to be at the beaches at night. Example, trash collection. The average truck will get between 900 and 1,200 pounds of garbage during a run, okay? And that would be a run in Montauk. Recently, we had a night shift completely to capacity twice in one run. That is 4,000 pounds of trash on a shift between 4 p.m. and 12:30. And the majority of that trash is, at the receptacles coming off the beach right now. So that's how many actions, how much activities on the beach. And a lot of that, again, is probably from, individuals having heavier food at night times. Of course, with those nighttime activities, there's an increase of beach fires or bonfires, which are still allowed, but they still have to be done within the code, within a container, distance away from the dune line, and also with a 5-gallon bucket of water nearby. Just this morning, we almost took about a quart of wood off the beach, about 10 feet from the dune line. That was just left there, and that was within, a couple hundred yards from one of our popular beach entrances. Enforcement agencies are on the sand a lot more at night times, and they're continuing to enforce. But I think common sense, it has to play into a lot of individuals that are using our beaches. And please share our beaches with individuals and spread out appropriately. Parking is being diverted to other non-traditional locations and into private parking areas, which are we're having conflicts. We're seeing that in areas specifically in Montauk. Parking is going to church parking lots. In Ditch, you're seeing it go north onto Benson Drive. In the downtown area, you're just seeing parking in locations where it's been unfettered or unregulated. And I look forward to talking with the chief after Labor Day and maybe bring back to the board some options we might have. In Amagansett, what you're seeing a lot for parking is individuals are now parking at other municipal parking lots, including the train station, filling up and then going down. One of the best things from the advisor group is the addition of a lot of bike racks. A lot of people are biking and walking to the beaches right now, which is very nice to see, specifically down in Ditch and also in Atlantic. The TCOs made a concerted effort to be in all our parking lots, and specifically to the road ends to the west, including Beach Lane and also Town Line Road, enforcing our beach parking regulations in those areas. They made a concerted effort there. Again, there is a great coordination between our agencies and the lifeguards, but as the students start heading back to college or university in whatever form that may be, we're going to be consistently looking at our staffing levels and rotations of personnel at our town beaches. Bathroom use at our guarded beaches and also in our downtown hamlets is consistent. But the one issue we're seeing right now with individuals is that they are not continuously using their masks. So we continuously ask that anytime you use one of our beach facilities, that be the parking lots, and then also our bathrooms, that you please be considerate others and wear your mask. And also follow the occupancy levels in the bathrooms maintained. There's one person in the bathroom, please wait outside. There's no need to have 5 into the bathroom. The beach advisory group will continue to meet and make any adaptations out there, but it's a challenging time that we're all having right now. I think what we have to do in some of the areas, specifically Motel Row right now, is an outreach to the chamber and also to the beach, to the hotels themselves, to let their user groups know that there is wonderful sandy beaches that aren't as crowded, just a little bit, a couple hundred yards to the west, or even further to the east, and have their crowds spread out, continue the social distance. The lifeguards are still using their 10-foot poles and their photography to manage that. And I think Peter will talk about enforcement later. I'd like to talk about a little bit about 2 other things. The Amagansett parking lot construction is still undergoing right now. There was a plan to pave this week. We decided against that, not to aggravate or agitate anyone else besides the contractor. And we put that off now to September. If it would be okay with the supervisor, I wouldn't mind having a discussion about those long-term parking changes there as far as the time regulations, maybe next Tuesday at our work session, if that would be okay. You could put that on there.
Just submit it when we send around the email asking for agenda items.
I will. Thank you very much for that. One else, so storm prep right now. Other agencies doing storm prep besides enforcement right now are, I'll go into the lifeguards and the storm prep. We're going to push out that information, the lifeguard, chief lifeguard, of what flag it is, when there's no swimming, riptides, and we're going to push that out into our social media platforms so the residents would know that prior to even leaving. Town lifeguards also have a website where you can check on the surf conditions on their website too, but we'll continue to push that out through our Instagram and Facebook pages. I've also requested the same of our Steve Lynch, our superintendent of highways. If there's any breaches or any roadways that, are down because of trees or because of flooding hazards, he'll let me know. We'll continue to push that out through our social media to get real-time results to the residents of anything that might be happening out there. And then also that would assist again with our emergency response. I had a discussion with John Dunn in aquaculture. Their storm prep right now is doubling the lines in the grow out fields, making sure everything's prepped and prepared because we will be at a full moon tide right now. Be ready for that. Lastly, Georgia Pond. Georgia Pond is a wonderful place right now, and blue claw crabbing is allowed there. We recently received an email there. I just want to make sure everyone knows that Chapter 213 of the Shellfish Code, Chapter 213 of the Town Code that governs shellfish, particularly when it comes to that species of blue claw crab, that no female crabs with eggs may be harvested. Holders of a commercial license may have no limit on the number of crabs harvested per day, but you must be a town resident to acquire a commercial license. Third, holders of individual permits, resident permits may harvest 50 crabs a day, but you must be East Hampton Town, have an East Hampton Town shellfish permit to harvest crabs. And all harvested crabs must be 5 inches across the carapace.
Carapace.
So close. All smaller crabs must be put back. And again, that's just not in Georgia Pond, but that's in all our water bodies. So I plead with everyone to please continue with the regulations in our code for survival rates of the blue claw crab in those areas.
And David, if I could just jump in, the 5 inches is a town regulation. I believe New York State allows 4.5 inches. So if you went to the New York State website, you might think 4.5 inches crab was legal to take here. It's not. It has to be 5 inches across the carapace.
Carapace. Thank you very much. And with that, that is my liaison report.
David, can I just ask you one follow-up on the beach committee? Was there any discussion about that crowding on Montauk Beach that was on social media?
Jeff, I'd be happy to answer that because I spent a better part of the day Saturday in Montauk after the CAC meeting. The whole rest of my day was spent in Montauk with the enforcement agencies. And I think when you see stuff on social media, you have to always take it with a grain of salt because when you look down the beach at that kind of an angle, it's going to look a lot more crowded than when you have a view from above. And I just want to share a drone shot. This is at Nick's Beach. Okay, so you can see groups are pretty well spaced out, but you can imagine if you walk out here on the beach and you took a photograph going to the west, it's going to look like a solid mass of people shoulder to shoulder. So I think we've been monitoring that. I put out a press release ahead of the weekend saying that people should expect beach closures as capacity was reached and social distancing was no longer possible, and the roadways to the parking lots were shut down. Pedestrians were turned away until such time that there was more room on the beach. So if a group came off the beach, another group could go on. So that, we're trying to manage that the best we can. We've restricted parking in much downtown. We didn't issue non-resident permits this year. And it's a work in progress, but we had a lot of enforcement, lifeguards, the beach ambassadors from parks, Marine Patrol, and police departments at those major beachheads in Montauk. And I was there seeing it for myself. Actually posted some of that on social media because, again, you see one photograph looking down the beach and it creates a lot of concern about the photograph, but it doesn't really necessarily represent the actual situation on the ground.
So you're saying it was not a problem, crowding was not a problem on that beach?
I'm saying that we monitored that, and there may be a couple spots, again, so we closed. And I think if there's any concentration that even came close to really being a problem, it was mostly in front of the hotel row. And again, that's when we started shutting down the access, when we felt that, this is getting too crowded here, and people were turned away.
Yeah, so I believe Dish Plains was Otis Road was closed for about an hour and a half, and in the better part of 2 hours, the beach access points by Nick's Beach were closed until there was a decrease in capacity that was determined by Marine Patrol and the lieutenant lifeguard out of Montauk. So those areas were filled up and then alleviated before anyone was allowed back onto those beaches. And then the messaging was, there's other beaches, other areas, please go find that, but you can't be in this location then too. But yes, that was determined, that happened on Saturday.
This is Ditch. You see the jetty here.
Yeah.
So,
and most of those to the left are surfboards, not people.
Right. You can see the stack of surfboards all on here. So
what you're saying is that the lifeguards are making these determinations and with public safety staff based on aerial views, because you can't get the perspective when you're, standing up to see how socially distanced people are and how tight the beach is.
You can get a sense of it walking down the beach with the 10-foot pole. I mean, you can see if it's getting too packed in that way. I'm just saying, my point is that, we're monitoring with drones because it's a much easier way to get a snapshot in real time to see how people are spaced out. But you can't compare, that with the photograph that's out on the beach looking down the whole length of the beach. Of course, it's going to look like it's a mob of people, and it's not necessarily representing the actual situation.
Well, I remember, David, you had some comments, I think it was last week, about Ditch and about how intensely crowded it was. I'm remembering that. I'm just, I do think that beach crowding is a concern. I appreciate looking at drone photographs. Not, I think they have some limitations too because of the height. But this was a problem that, David, we were discussing, and you were concerned last weekend about it.
Right, and that's why we put out the extra enforcement this past weekend, Jeff. And
we've
that's
always
why I spent my Saturday down there.
We've always had the tool in the tool belt as far as a beach closure to new users. Just because a parking lot is full doesn't mean a beach is closed to new users. And why I say that is because when the Atlantic Avenue parking lot gets closed, there's a coordination between the TCOs and the lifeguards to get at that point, in that point of day, what the correlation to how busy it is on the beach. And Atlantic Avenue is 75% this week. Indian Wells is 60%. That's based on the best resources that we have with the lifeguards. Tish Plains is it's a narrow beach, and depending on what the storm does, it's going to be narrower. They're constantly messaging, move further down to the west, and it was a determination that for social distancing standards, that we had to close that beach down for a period of time until enough people came off the beach, which typically happens around 3 o'clock, to make sure that everyone was social distance. And from my reports, and Peter again was there, from my reports from the staff was that no one had a complaint. They all understood why no new users are allowed to go onto that beach. And again, it was a tool in the tool belt that hadn't been used, and it was used effectively this weekend.
We've had a pretty hot stretch of weather, and I think Saturday was an absolutely beautiful day to be at the beach. It was so hot, beautiful blue skies, nice surf break. But we know that in order to stay in compliance, which is our goal, and to keep the public safe, that we're going to have to monitor and at times restrict access to the beaches, which is something we would normally loathe doing. But during a pandemic, it's important that we continue to keep people spaced out and try and keep people safe. And it's something we're going to have to continue to monitor and put resources towards. And we appreciate the public's patience. As David said, folks were being turned away. I mean, if you're expecting to go to the beach and someone tells you, I'm sorry, but the beach is full right now, try going to the west or going to the east or come back a little bit later. We didn't see people, objecting. They understood it was to keep them safe and to keep others safe. And actually, the closures didn't have to be in place too long at any one of the locations, because again, as people moved off the beach, then they allowed more people on. And as you know, you get a little bit later in the afternoon and much larger numbers of people start leaving the beach because they've been there for quite a while. So, it's a work in progress. We're going to have to continue to put resources into monitoring that to keep everybody safe. And I want to thank you, David, for all your excellent work on that, working with lifeguards and Marine Patrol and everybody. It's a pretty Herculean effort, because our beaches are the primary focus within our town in the summertime, and just dealing with the garbage and keeping people spread out is a lot to do. And I went and
I
experienced all the work and all the, I just want to add one more thing to that. It is that we have so many hardworking, dedicated staff, whether it's the police department, Marine Patrol, the rec staff, and the lifeguards. This has been a real challenge for everyone. But I have to say that all of our folks have really stepped up, and they are really helping us have the best summer we could possibly have under the circumstances. So big shout out to them, because I know it's a lot to take on.
I'm glad we're keeping track. I'm glad to hear that.
Do you have anything else for us, David?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Sylvia?
Yeah, the Montauk CAC met last night. We had 28 members, I think, in total, including myself. So anyway, it was well attended for August. There was a couple of questions about opening Kirk Park Beach parking lot. There are a few folks that thought that charging $35 was too much. Then there were those that said it wasn't enough, and then there were those that said it was just right. So it was a little bit of a Goldilocks kind of but I think the consensus of it was, $35 for a day at the beach and to help out parking that was happening, beach parking happening in the center of town, to move that away so that businesses could operate effectively during this time period was well done. And thank you a lot, Peter, for getting that done. I believe the lot didn't open until Sunday. Actually, it was
open Saturday, but it closed to capacity. Again, a really busy beach day all over.
Yeah. So they did mention that all the parking lots were very busy at the beaches. There was some concern that even though you close the parking lot, people still walk through to get to the beach, or they're getting dropped off by Ubers or biking. So there was some concern about that, but they felt that the capacity didn't seem to be overdone. Ditch is always a concern, especially for those that want to surf. And so I think there was still some, a few folks that felt it was too crowded to surf and wish there were less people.
There were a lot of people in the lineup, actually surfing. So there were a lot of folks in the waves.
Yeah. And you may get some letters from some folks from Ditch wanting, part of it is they want a bigger beach, and that's just not happening this summer. So, and hopefully this storm isn't going to make that any worse. They also talked about parking beach passes for hotels. Several members of the committee are either managers of hotels, owners of hotels, or in the hospitality group with the Chamber of Commerce. So they certainly understand, or there seemed to be understanding of not issuing beach passes. There was one suggestion that I think might be a good one that we should consider, and that was Gin Beach is a beach that's underutilized right now, and we might, particularly for the hotels, issue beach passes only for Gin Beach, because it is more of a family beach. It's more gentle waves, not for people that don't swim well, if they don't want to be at the beach in the waves. So I thought maybe that would be a consideration that we would think about issuing just for Gin Beach and Montauk hotels. So I don't know how the rest of you feel. You may want to think about it. I'm assuming you're going to get a letter, not from the CAC, but from several hotel folks that thought that might be a good idea. And I agree that might be helpful to the hotels. And they're not asking for the same number of beach passes. They would think that this would be a reduced number of beach passes for them, but they think that families, particularly since they're seeing an increase in family members coming as groups this summer, that might be helpful.
Well, from the beach advisory group, they haven't changed their position. They would be looking. They all are recommending that can happen, but in a decreased capacity of the permits.
Okay.
50% or less, is probably where I would come on.
Yeah, I think we'll have to get together with Carol and review, the number of permits we issued last year. And I would certainly think a significant reduction if we do look to issue.
Okay.
And I did notice myself when I was out at Gin Beach that there actually were a number of spaces that were open, maybe 4 or 5 spaces in the lot right during the peak of the day. So, and it was a beautiful, wide beach there. I walked out on that beach and very much room to spread out. Of course, it was a great day to be at the beach anywhere. So.
So we will discuss it also with the Business Recovery Group. They meet tomorrow morning, so I'll also discuss it with them, and they may have a recommendation as well for the town board about Gin Beach only passes for the hotels. Beach fires came up also. Several members are concerned that they're being either left on the beach and then they're spreading the embers out as they leave. They take the containers with them. It appears as though they might take the containers with them, but they don't put the embers out completely, which is not supposed to happen. And so it was mentioned that some people have stepped on these hot embers. I don't think anyone seems as though they've gone to seek medical treatment, but they were, they know they were there. So I would like to, do some more communication posts with, how you're supposed to handle a beach fire and how they should, particularly this time. There do seem to be more people down there in the evenings, and the hotels are also providing, opportunities for beach fires. They seem to be doing the right thing. It's more people coming down as someone one of the members said, it seems as though the share houses are coming down to the beach at night and building these fires. And so they just want to make sure that everyone follows the rules. Even if you put them in a container, you have to make sure those embers are extinguished completely before you leave the beach.
And you're supposed to take them off the beach with you, too, by the way. Any debris from the fire, you should be taking away with you. Put it out, take it home, dispose of it properly in a garbage can.
Yeah. So anyway, so that did come up. There was also mention of, and I've talking with Tony Littman about garbage on the streets in Montauk. I know you talked about it, David. How many times people go through. I do think there's a responsibility that all of us have, anybody that's visiting and anyone that is a business owner. We all need to make sure that, we keep our areas clean and neat as much as possible. And we will try our best as a, community, as David said, 2 runs that were over 4,000 pounds each is not kind of normal for this time of year, but people are doing takeout food more, and so the containers,
There's also an associated cost to the town and removing that now too. In the end.
Absolutely.
So, moving on to energy sustainability, I sent all of you the poster. You should have it in an email. I think I sent it maybe around 10:30 this morning. So if you haven't seen it yet. It is the poster for the Community Choice Aggregation webinar that's going to happen on August 17th, and it will be from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. You have to register to join the webinar at energizeeh.org, and you can submit questions ahead of time so that you can make sure that the panelists will answer them. There are 3 panelists, 3 speakers: Brad Tito from NYSERDA, Dan Welch from Sustainable Westchester, and Justin Bell from LIPA. And they'll all be there to talk about what community choice aggregation is. And thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Sylvia.
Appreciate it. There's the poster. So, we'll post it on the website and hopefully on Facebook and make sure people are aware. Kathy, for your group, your CAC was very interested and had, I think, a subcommittee discussing CCA. So hopefully they will be part of this webinar. And if we can just, people that have questions as we move along, this is really one of the answers that we have for getting more renewable energy in East Hampton. So so the last, and also on August the 18th, I'm asking that we put the electric leaf blower legislation on to consider it, to look at what the Energy Sustainability Committee is recommending on August the 18th. And that's going to be presented by Lauren Steinberg and Paul Munez and Lena Tabori from the Energy Sustainability Committee. And the recovery group also met, as they do every Wednesday. We now have posters that we printed out and will be distributing to businesses that ask people that, say that masks are required when you come into the business, and how many people are allowed into the business, very similar to the ones that are at the village. So we copied pretty much what they were asking for. So there is some consistency between
Looks
the
like
two.
this. They just arrived in my office today.
Yeah,
Okay.
those are going to be very helpful.
All right, great. So we'll get those distributed, and the Chamber of Commerce in Montauk has been very, said that they would help us distribute those to the different businesses. So And that is my report.
Thank you, Sylvia. Jeff?
Hi. I met with the Waynescott CAC on Saturday, and it was an interesting meeting. We discussed the possibility of the incorporation of Waynescott as an incorporated village. And Mayor Don Lockheim of Sagaponack was there. Peter jumped on the call as well. And it was, I thought, a pretty even-handed and informative meeting. The mayor sort of gave the history of how Sagaponack became interested in the issue. Apparently at one time in their history, there was a group of homeowners along the beach that wanted to incorporate a village and therefore own the beach. And that kind of united Sagaponack to the issue of maybe incorporating themselves and managing the beaches. Also, he did mention something that I had observed over the years, and that was that Sagaponack was somewhat unhappy with the treatment they were getting from the town of Southampton in terms of planning and zoning issues and applications being granted. He indicated that much of the more involved work that the village would have to undertake, they accomplished by intermunicipal agreements with the town of Southampton, and that they have negotiated police enforcement, that they take care of road maintenance, and there are other services that the town provides, and those services are reflected in their tax bill. If I understood him correctly, he thought the taxes were about the same before and after. There are two different portions on the tax bill. One would be an incorporated village. One is the portion that you pay of Southampton taxes. He was, I think, fairly candid about the similarities between Sagaponack and Waynescott in terms of size, but also about the differences between the two communities. The main difference being that Waynescott has a commercial district, has an airport, and has some commercial activity that's going to require planning moving forward, including the pit, the mine. But essentially, he said they had no problem transitioning into their own village. They essentially took the zoning and planning codes from the town of East Hampton and sort of used them as a template, tinkered with them, and set up their own boards. So they have a zoning board, a planning board, and the village board of trustees, none of whom are paid employees.
Jeff, I think you meant to say the Southampton code, not the East Hampton code.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did. I meant to say Southampton town code. And he indicated that they tightened up the subdivision regulations. They changed the rules on non-conforming uses because they wanted to be very strict on not allowing any kind of expansion of non-conforming uses. They rewrote the sign ads, and he was very proud of the fact that they restricted the size of houses, which he felt was a very important step. Said that they didn't encounter much litigation, although they had an army of realtors that met them and said that it was going to be a disaster. And he was, I think, proud of the fact that it improved the quality of life. He was very proud that they have not torn down a single historic structure in Sagaponack. I'm not trying to portray one side against the other here, because he was definitely spoke about the differences between the two communities. And I think he indicated that there would be more complexity if Waynescott were to do it. A lot of the questions were just technical. What happens in the transition period? It came out that there can be a 1-year transition period, but to the extent that an incorporated village takes jurisdiction to control the area, it can shorten that with its own rules. There were some mentions from, and again, Wainscott residents about impacts to school, to the school and maintaining their school, and what would be the impact on the school. There was some mention of affordable housing, and actually, Mayor Locke mentioned that there was no land available in Sagaponack for affordable housing. Interestingly, he said, "We want kids. We need more kids in our school," which I thought was interesting. And they're trying to fill them. I have the feeling that in this time of COVID, they may get what they want. The questions were really wide-ranging and informative. They asked him if he had contingency plans for emergencies like hurricanes, and he said, "We're insured, and the federal government is there to help us." But that they didn't get any kind of flood of litigation. So I guess that's really the gist of what went on there. It was recorded, I assume, for the use of the public. Peter, you don't have an objection to this recording being accessed by the public?
Of course not. In fact, I'd prefer to have it. I don't think Carolyn set it out yet.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I know you were on the call. I thought it was a very informative. It was a very informative and modulated discussion. There was actually, an exchange of ideas, and it was easy to follow. So I don't know. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I thought it was a really excellent meeting as they go for an issue that's as controversial, or will probably become as controversial as the incorporation of Wainscott. I wanted to mention that I just sent you out an email from Steve Lynch on the Wainscott Green. I really appreciate the fact that he looked around and not only got the final, I think the final piece in the cost to make the green what the plan shows it to be. He got the cost for stone chips sealed, which is a handicap accessible surface for the walkway. And I sent that email around just this morning. It just came in. So we are close to having the total. I sent him a follow-up email asking him if there was going to be some additional expense for pervious stone parking spaces. We know that we have to pave one of the parking spaces for a handicap space. So I was really glad to talk to him, and hope to get some comment from the board on that. And then the only other issue is a rather obscure issue, I think, for members of the public, and that is I met with the Housing Authority, and there's still some confusion with them about the payment in lieu of taxes agreements and the right form for that agreement. I've talked to John Jilnicki, who is always helpful on this, and sent out a note to Jim Ryan, who's our tax counsel. We're trying to figure out just procedurally what we need on those payment in lieu of taxes documents, like who has to sign the documents. So I'm hoping to get some information from John Ryan, and always appreciate having John Jilnicki in the picture to help out on legal matters. And I think that's about it. I think already discussed in the CAC that we won our case with the FAA, which authorized the payment of legal fees out of airport funds, which is a significant win for the town. And I did discuss some time ago that we're going to transition Vector into the newer, state-of-the-art GPS controlled system to monitor traffic that gives them both a wider view and a view closer to the ground. And I think that resolution is going to be on the town board meeting this coming Thursday. And I think that's about what I have.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Michael, do we have the number up for callers to call in?
I can
Just got an email saying.
I've been putting it up, periodically. I'll put it up right now.
Okay, please do. I apologize. We had a little gap in the broadcast today. The live stream went down for a little bit of time, but it was still, I guess, on the YouTube channel and broadcast. So there is a recording of the full meeting.
Correct.
If you missed a little bit of the meeting, go back and check that out if you like. I don't think it was out very long from what I see, but just want to let you know. So as I spoke earlier, I spent a good part of the day on Saturday after the Wainscott CAC meeting out in Montauk, probably till about 5 o'clock or a little later, visiting the various beach ends and talking with staff and sort of checking out the situation. We did have beach closures as we anticipated in order to stay with the social distancing requirements and reduced occupancy on the beaches. Over this past weekend, I had put out that press release ahead of time just to let folks know that we expected to be making closures as the beaches filled up, keep everybody safe. I met with all our staff, the lifeguards and police department, TCOs, Marine Patrol, and our rec staff who were out. And everything seemed to run pretty smoothly. Again, large numbers of people out and about, beautiful beach day. And I think our goal is to really keep people spread out as much as possible. So when a beach closure took place, there was communication via radio back and forth, so we knew where we could send folks to give them alternatives to go to other beaches to keep people spread out. So I think all in all was very successful. And again, I want to thank all of our staff for all the hard work they put in, keeping the public safe and keeping things running efficiently. I'll be having a resolution on for credit cards in an effort to continue to improve services to the community. We are looking to have a credit card pay anywhere service, and this will be helpful for taking beach fees or, for instance, animal control when someone's redeeming a dog that's been picked up unlicensed. That can be done remotely, pay remotely. And I think, especially in this time of COVID, the more we can move to credit card payments and online payments and that sort of thing, the better off we are in terms of providing services to the community. As was discussed earlier during the work session, we talked about the extreme pressure on cellular service and on internet service access here in East Hampton that's really been compounded by the pandemic. Normally we have some seasonal issues, but with so many people out full time, so many people working remotely, it's not like they're just here on a vacation and not working. They're hunkered down and working throughout the day. People are watching streaming movies and whatnot. It's really overloaded all of our systems. As I've mentioned earlier, Altice is busy still continuing to expand the fiber optic network throughout the entire footprint of the town, and they'll be offering direct to the home fiber optic connections and increased speed and capacity. I think in speaking with their CEO, that they're more than doubling the number of nodes within the network, which will help improve speeds and access. But also, cellular communications have increasingly become less reliable. Even here at Town Hall, my cell phone's dropping calls regularly where that was never, ever an issue. The system's just becoming overloaded. So I think, it's really important that we take a comprehensive look at cellular communications throughout the town. Historically, cellular communications have been provided by individual company providers to just their customers, and it's been done in a very piecemeal kind of a way, each company trying to get the best coverage on their networks. And, I think we've really reached a point within the town that rather than continue to proceed in a piecemeal kind of way, that the town really needs to step up and take a more comprehensive approach to finding locations to fill in the gaps, to require more than just one carrier on a tower and whatnot. So in furthering that effort, there will be a RFP going out for communications consultant this Thursday. In addition to that, sort of coverage approach, we also need to update the town's cellular code because it's not up to date with the FCC requirements, and it better needs to reflect the changes on the federal level. We are bound to abide by some of those FCC procedures and whatnot, and that needs to be reflected in our code because it's not been updated in a couple of decades now, I think, really. I've been having some meetings with some of the various entities in town that provide education and child care services, whether it was Project Most or Eleanor Whitmore Early Childhood Development Center. And for those who don't realize it, these are really crucial in our town to help supporting working families and providing quality education and early learning. It's so important to reach children at a very young age, even before the age of 3. Eleanor Whitmore is the only licensed private affordable year-round provider within the town, and they take children from 18 months to 5 years old. During the pandemic, they provided free childcare for children throughout quite a range of ages to those essential workers, whether it be hospital workers, police officers doing overtime, whatever it was. And that's really critical response at a very difficult time. And they self-funded without revenues from having those children have paid tuitions for something like 22 weeks this year. And they, while they've benefited from a number of generous contributions, those coffers are running low. And, the town does provide annual expenditures to help them in the form of grants, as well as some other local entities. And so I'll be circulating a request. It's now budget time. They're asking for additional assistance this year, as you can understand. Many pressures. Part of what both Project Most and Eleanor Whitmore are facing is physical space in which to expand to be able to meet the reduction of number of children that they can have in any one classroom. Eleanor Whitmore is looking to take 2 existing rooms and turn them into classrooms within their facilities, going from 6 to 8. This requirement by the state in terms of number of staffing that you have within each classroom hasn't changed. Therefore, they'll have additional expenditures as well. So, I want the general public to understand that these are critical institutions within our community, ensuring that children have appropriate care and learning opportunities, and to please consider contributing what you can. The town will be looking at that as well to contribute during these times of need. We also have word, I spoke with Fred Thiel yesterday. Word on the South Fork commuter connection is that service will not resume in September. Unfortunately, the MTA has experienced a ridership loss of about 75%. And they're facing extreme economic and revenue shortfalls. So sadly, just as that commuter connection was expanding and providing, critical alternatives to the trade parade and the highway traffic, it looks like that service will not restart in September, and for the time being. Beyond that, it's uncertain, which is sad. Another sad effect of this pandemic. PSEG has called for several load reduction events on July 20th, 22nd, 27th, and 28th. The town participated in reducing peak load across the grid by taking our facilities off the grid and powering them with our clean propane generators for certain periods. It's generally a 4-hour period. PSEG basically gives us the equivalent of what that energy would be charged on the grid. We are getting think it's $110 per kilowatt hour for offset, plus the cost for fuel that we use. That is actually reducing the possibility of brownouts during peak times. As you know, we've had a very warm spell lately, warm, dry spell. A lot of people running air conditioners and whatnot. And this is a way to keep the grid up and running and actually offset the need for additional diesel peaker plants on Long Island while we await the South Fork wind farm to come online and produce clean, renewable energy to help offset our growing demand for electricity. I think I mentioned at the last meeting work session that the villages of Sag Harbor, East Hampton, and the town of East Hampton have come together to form a traffic task force to look at the impacts of ever-growing traffic on our towns and villages in the area, and discuss about ways to address those problems, whether they be infrastructure improvements at various intersections to help flow and circulation, whether it be expanding public transportation within the towns and villages, and also looking at alternative ways of traveling about town, whether it be improving bike paths and trails and pedestrian ways to connect the various hamlets and get from here to there. So those ideas are being discussed, and ways of addressing that traffic issue is ongoing. Assemblyman Fred Thiel and Senator Kaminsky had sponsored legislation to strengthen oversight of mining operations, with particularly an eye on Long Island, which is has its sole source aquifer is under our feet and under duress. This legislation would allow for local home rule and authority with regard to mining operations within a township. We could promulgate our own legislation and zoning regulations about those types of activities and have more authority. Currently, the DEC is the ultimate authority in those cases. And as you know from recent news, the town has actually entered into litigation against the mine owner and the DEC over expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming mine. That is ongoing. This legislation would certainly give the towns the ability to craft legislation to further protect our water resources, which are absolutely critical to us. Also on July 29th, there was a major milestone for FIMP, which is the Fire Island to Montauk Point formulation study. The House passed the Water Resources Development Act of 2020, which provides authorization for the FIMP project. For us in downtown Montauk, that means 400,000 cubic yards of sand-only replenishment for the downtown area, where the existing emergency stabilization project is about 3,200 lineal feet. This project would be over 6,000 feet and add a significant amount of sand to help stabilize that beach. This is an interim response, intermediate approach to what we know are long-term issues with regard to sea level rise and increased storm inundation. We know that this is just to give us enough time, hopefully, to be able to finish our discussions about alternate responses, primarily transfer development rights, and adapting to a changing coastline to preserve our businesses and keep our beaches vital, and also give nature a little bit more room to manage the beach so we don't have to. The FAA recently ruled in favor of the town. There have been litigation about the use of airport funds to defend lawsuits against the town regarding the airport. The final agency order was just issued on the 23rd, and it basically supported the town's position that those were charges against the town's airport fund that were legitimate and legal. And while we expected to win that case, you never know. I think this is a significant a significant win for the town on this issue. And I think that's it for my liaison report. So we have any callers on the line, Michael?
No, there are no callers on the line.
Okay. So at this point, we have resolutions.
Yes, I have a resolution to offer. I have resolution 2020-739. This is SEP donation of sailboats from the Devon Yacht Club, where the Devon Yacht Club is offered to donate to the town, town's East Hampton Sailing Program for 420 sailboats, and resolve that the town thanks the Devon Yacht Club Incorporated for their generous donation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 2020-740 is to authorize agreement with Pay Anywhere LLC. And this is to enter into agreement between the town and Pay Anywhere LLC for subscription for credit card service. And that would be at a cost of $9.95 a month with a 10-cent per transaction after the 25 per month limit.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. So we have an exec session today, and I'll entertain a motion to go into exec session for CPF contracts and litigation.
I make a motion to go into exec session for CPF contracts and litigation it's now 12:51.
Is 1:30, 1:45? What's
Both.
the
Either
1:30
one.
good?
Which one?
Does John have any of our outside counsel calling in today?
We have Andrew Barr is available after 1:30.
And I have
All right,
So-
you want to,
our outside counsels as well. I told them probably after 2.
Okay, so 1:30 work?
Yes.
okay, 1:30 for.
I'll send the link. I'll send the link shortly.
Can you include Andrew Barr in the link, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, be well, tie everything down because the wind's going to blow later.